here we are. I'm just going to do a quick introduction. This is actually Molly's show, so I'm going to turn it over to her to run it. But real quick, for anyone who's getting to know me, my name's Trevor Maxwell. I'm a 6-year survivor / patient of stage 4 colorectal cancer. And I'm the founder and CEO of Man Up to Cancer, which is a nonprofit that inspires men to avoid isolation during the cancer journey. And I'm here today with my new and I feel like I've known you for a long time.
I know.
Molly Lindquist. I'm going to turn it over to her, and Molly can tell you a little bit about who she is.
Thanks, Trevor. Yeah, it does feel like I've known you forever. They're just those people that you connect with, and clearly we've shared the cancer craziness, which I think kind of catapults those relationships very quickly. But thank you for having me. As Trevor mentioned, I'm Molly Lindquist. I'm part of the Manta Cares team, and we produce the Patient from Hell podcast, which
best name. This is the best podcast name out there.
Totally. And really, again, the premise is kind of to turn everyone into the patient from hell, meaning that you go into appointments with your doctor empowered, ready with questions, kind of, up to date on everything that's going to really impact your health and make you a better advocate for yourself. So I'm super happy to be here for Podcast Club, which really is kind of our, I was joking that, it's almost like the Oprah Book Club, but for podcasts. So get ready, we're clearly going to be talking about.
Yeah, I'll probably only cry twice today. Yeah, so
perfect. Yeah, I hope you have your tissue box ready, Trevor, because that's really my goal. But in essence, we have these podcasts with the Patient-Centered Outcomes Research Institute researchers. And so for those of you who aren't familiar with PCORI, they do a lot of research to figure out, putting patients at the center of the equation, what are things that will help them through their experience. So all of these investigators that we have on the podcast have been doing research in that vein, and we're going to talk about one of those podcasts today. And I'm going to read the title so I don't mess it up, but it's Navigating Colorectal Cancer Screening for Older Adults. And the researchers that were on the podcast are from the Massachusetts General Hospital. They're the, I'm going to get it correctly here, the Health Decision Sciences Center. So, I have to admit, Trevor, when I came into this, I didn't know that, decision sciences was really a thing, or that, the idea of having these different options when communicating and making decisions about your health even existed. So it's been kind of eye-opening for me to see all of these research studies that really show, both give tips on how to better communicate with your healthcare provider and your care team, but also actually talk about the fact that you really do have decisions. I think, and you can absolutely speak to this too, but I think we hear the word cancer and, I at least assumed that, okay, there's going to be this plan dictated for me. I'm going to follow the plan. Hopefully in the end, it all ends well, so to speak. But really along the way, there are a lot of decisions that we as patients have power to influence.
100%.
And yeah, realizing that is kind of half the battle.
Yeah, so. Absolutely. And I'm not, like I said, I probably won't get into questions with the rolling comments, but
yes.
But I do want to say hi, Tim, hi, Barb, hey, Chuck and Sean, and Marie. Marie's on a webinar right now. It's like there's so many webinars, and it's a bummer she can't just be here with us. But hey, Marie, and Eric. So yeah, I totally agree with you on, and we'll get into some of that decision making, but I'll pass it back over to you to kind of continue. Oh, and let people know again that you are a survivor as well.
Yes. So quickly, my background, yes, I am a 12-year breast cancer survivor. So, I joke that I've been dating my boyfriend, Ned, no evidence of disease for over a decade. Happy to share Ned with anyone and everyone, just for the record.
Stop hogging him, because I would really love a date with Ned.
Yes, I know.
I want, more than like a month, I want like a long-term relationship with Ned.
Yes, exactly. I've literally been shaking Ned. I'm like, dude, Trevor, come
I
on,
know.
man.
Well, hey, you never know. You
That's
just
right.
that's the thing with this whole cancer situation is just it is really unpredictable sometimes.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
congratulations on, you said 12 years.
Yeah, 12 years.
Nice.
So I had small, kids when I was first diagnosed who are now teenagers. And every day I'm just super grateful that I get to watch them grow up and that I get to annoy them with my mom jokes and, really very, very grateful for time. And
So fantastic.
again, yeah, I know we all kind of have a new sense of the importance of that. So yeah, so basically to open up, Trevor, I mean, you gave your background, but I'd love to hear more about Man Up to Cancer, how it started. I know that you recently became an official nonprofit, which is super exciting.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I would love to hear kind of what started this whole movement for you.
Oh my gosh, yeah, thank you. So just in a nutshell, for after my diagnosis, I was 41, had no context that cancer was going to come into my life. No preparation for that. Our girls were 12 and 10 years old, and all of a sudden I'm facing, going from middle of prime of my life to, having a potentially deadly disease and and stage 4. So it was completely shocking. And I went into, I really struggled with mental health,
Mhm.
anxiety, depression, to the point where I really wasn't functioning a lot of that first year.
Yeah.
I was going through surgeries and chemo and everything else. And no matter how hard those physical things were, the emotional burden was way harder. And that's really what I was struggling with. And finally, to make a long story short, I got to the point where I realized I could not climb out of that pit by myself. Like I needed help. And that's, for a lot of the guys we know, that can be that barrier that really has to get over, where you're saying, like, I've been taught my whole life that I should just be able to handle everything on my own.
Right.
And now I feel like I'm in this position where I need help. And fortunately, I had friends and family that kind of pushed me to that. They're like, you know what, you shouldn't have to do this alone, and you don't, go really reach out. And so I started doing group counseling, individual counseling, meeting people online through Colon Town, Colon Club, other organizations going through the same thing I was going through, and I started to climb out of that pit. And as I did that, everywhere I went, I realized that in co-ed spaces, it was generally 75, 80% women or more.
Right.
And that thought that came to me was like, well, am I just weak? Am I just one of these guys that just can't handle it? Like, I started feeling ashamed. Like, seems like I'm one of the few guys that actually goes through a rough emotional time. And then I'm like, duh, guys are going through the same shit as I am. They're
Totally.
just not comfortable getting help, or being vulnerable, or even saying, like, I need a hand with this. We go into our man caves. So that's really where the genesis for Man Up to Cancer came from, was realizing that so many men were suffering like me, especially with the social and emotional pieces of cancer, and didn't really feel like they had a place to go. And so I just decided that I wanted to build a community, for them, like, from guys going through it or who have gone through it, for guys who are going through it. And that's really what it was. And I'm so lucky to have had so many awesome guys, starting with my right hand man, Joe Bullock, Durham, North Carolina, and so many others, be part of this. Like, say, yeah, we are with you. Like, we know guys are hurting. Let's try to build something for us and them. And so it's been 4 years, and now Man Up to Cancer, thanks to the hard work of a lot of guys, is a 501c3, and we have, the core of our group is the Facebook page, the Howling Place, our group, Facebook group, sorry. We have over 2,500 members now, mostly across North America, but some other pockets around the world. Shout out to David DeWild in Belgium, and others, Andrew Trollope in England, and all the guys. But, 2,500 plus men moving through, walking this cancer road together is a really special thing. And our programs, I'll go through really quickly. We have 3 core programs. I'm actually wearing the cap from our gathering. This is the Gathering of Wolves. So this is an in-person retreat for men impacted by cancer. We did the first one in 22. I had 55 guys there, again, from all over. And then This past year we had 110.
Wow.
And then this year we expect to have 175 plus. We're moving to a new location, Pocono Springs Camp in Eastern Pennsylvania, and super excited. It's really transformative, a place of real care and bonding and just fun for guys going through cancer. If anyone's interested in it, just shoot me an email, or better yet, shoot all of us an email, info@manuptocancer.org. So that's info@manuptocancer.org, and we will get you involved. The second program is chemo care backpacks. So we send out about 15 or 20 right now backpacks a month to members of our community. We also offer that on our website, where you can go buy a backpack for your guy going through cancer. It's filled with practical items, comfort items, kind of the stuff that a guy could use really going through chemo, immunotherapy, or surgery. So like earbuds and gloves and hydration tabs and lozenges and chapstick, all the stuff just filled in there. That's a really cool backpack. And then the third thing we do is local chapters. And we have about 40 plus local chapters, again, mostly in North America. But so this all started when members of Man Up to Cancer just started getting together. Like one of the first ones was some guys who were at Sloan Kettering for different treatments, and they just like got together and took a photo and had coffee. And then people just starting to get together to go to dinner, go to a ball game, go to a show, like whatever. And so those became known as Wolfpack meetups. And shout out to Don Helgeson in British Columbia, who's our Wolfpack meetup coordinator. We had over 400 documented Wolfpack meetups in 2023, where members of our community getting together. So I could go on and on, but what I really want to say, and I want to say something directly to the guys in the group, our members, like these are some of the bravest, most supportive, most loving people that you will ever meet. And the fact that they're in there offering support to others who are going through it, getting support for themselves, really is changing the way that men go through cancer. And that's what we're trying to do. Is like, it takes bravery because there's so much stigma in our culture still about men opening up and sharing the burden, and especially when it comes to an illness. So I couldn't be more proud of the guys who are part of this. It's awesome. And I just saw Danny Moisenin say, "You got me crying again." And Danny, man, this is another one. Like Danny's a great example of someone who has just opened up and opened his heart to the other guys, and in return, and it's a really awesome thing. So I'm just going to look over here to see if there was anything else I had to say on that. But yeah, I think when you see like at the gathering or even in the group, men supporting one another in some of the most challenging times of their lives, like if that doesn't move you, then you don't have a pulse. I'm sorry.
Yeah. That's amazing. I mean, you were just talking to so many pieces of the experience that, I know we all, experience, and clearly men experience in a different way, but just feeling so alone and, feeling like you are the only person in the world going through this. And
So if I could just talk a little bit more about 2018, like when I got diagnosed, like it seemed like I was the only person like at age 41 with these kids. And like, I still thought the old stereotype, like, and we'll get into this later, but like, I thought colorectal cancer was an old man's disease. And I actually had it in my family, because it turns out I found out after my diagnosis that I have Lynch syndrome, which is basically a predisposition to getting many types of cancers, including colorectal cancer. So instead of like a 4 to 5% likelihood, with my particular gene, it goes up into the 20-30%. There are some people with Lynch syndrome who it goes up to like 80% risk. So so I think for me, it was just very, very isolating. And I really went into that place where I just, I isolated myself. I felt like I was a burden to my family and others. And again, this is just cultural conditioning, right? Like we are brought up this way to feel like, I want wanted to be that husband and dad, not to be like the leader, but be the co-leader, and also just, you know, being a dad, like to role model and to be there for my kids and to all the stuff. And then all of a sudden you're facing a really, you know, the 5-year survival rate for stage 4 colorectal cancer is still less than 15%. We you know, which is why screening is so critical, and we're going to talk about that. And also treatment options, right? But like, I'm looking at these numbers. I'm a journalist and researcher by training, so I'm looking back I'm looking at these numbers at the time, and I'm thinking, I'm going to leave my kids, you know, like this. I cannot believe I have a cancer that I'm going to die from, and it was just crushing. And one of the cool things was finding my counselor, Patty. Shout out to Patty for pretty much saving my life. And like, and that became part of my message, is like, you don't have to sacrifice your man to get help. You can still be a guy's guy. You can, the tagline of Man Up to Cancer is open heart, warrior spirit. You definitely need to bring your warrior spirit, because like, I've had 7 major abdominal surgeries. I've gone through more than 50 rounds of chemo and immunotherapy. Like, you've got to be tough. You got to be a badass to get through this, but you also need to admit that you can't do it on your own. You need that help. And reaching out to a counselor was the best help that I ever got. Like, I was in her office on basically in a heap, thinking like my life was already over, and Patty walked me through that. So it's like, it's really cool when I see other guys say like, yeah, I go power lift in the morning, I'm driving truck, and then I see my counselor, and then I'm home for dinner. Like, those kind of complex guys who don't abide by the stereotypes is just really, really cool.
Right. And I think, I mean, you're showing that those two things can live together. Like, they can,
absolutely,
you know, they're not mutually exclusive. You can be both of those things. I think that's amazing. And, you know, again, we do, like, we kind of get cultural messages, and, you know, we want to be tough. And I just love the fact that you've been so open about your experience, again, so that other people are like, oh, Trevor went through that. Like, that's how I'm feeling.
yeah.
Like, oh my gosh, you know, it's this validation of, you know, we're not alone in this.
100%. And I see Jay Abramovich just said, men don't cry, right? Like, winky wink, right? And that's a big thing, right? Like, we have guys from all backgrounds who come into Man Up to Cancer. Some of them have been taught that, like, you're not to show that. You do not show weakness. You do not cry. That's not masculine, right? All those messages. I of course don't believe that. I believe that masculinity can wrap in all of this stuff. But it raises a good point, like, and I think just role modeling. So if that guy can be around other men who can still have a tough side, still be, you know, in some ways traditionally masculine, not toxic masculinity. We're not going there. We reject that. But, you know, traditionally more masculine, it's great for them. Also, we have guys that have never heard the words "I love you" in a friend way from another man. And we say it all the time. So normalizing that, you know, normalizing friendships where we do love one another and support one another can be really transformative for men coming in, especially when they're facing this challenge.
Totally. And much as like you and I have developed this like super fast friendship, I think, again, when you share that type of experience in common, you know, you have your friends from growing up who you shared all the like shenanigans of childhood with, and you have your, you know, college friends potentially, or your work friends, but like, this is, you know, a whole different level of bonding. And I love that you have, you know, both the in-person meetups and the ability for people to connect, because you kind of catapult into these friendships that, you know, seem like in, you know, the real world or pre-cancer wouldn't necessarily be the types of relationships that you might have. And yet all of a sudden it's like this new world. And we talk a lot about kind of silver linings of the cancer crap. And I think for me, at least, and it sounds like for you too, Trevor, that is absolutely those friendships, those relationships, the ability to even ask for help. You know, I'm so grateful. Well, I wish it wasn't cancer that had given me that, but
I just did a podcast with Jay Abramovich and Jason Manouche, some of our Canadian brothers, and about exactly that, like the depths that you can get to with friendships when you're facing this shared challenge, this shared experience is really remarkable. and so meaningful. I want to say hi to Ryan Veith. This guy just went through brain surgery not too long ago, and he's on here, and like, awesome. And Ken Ballard, so great to see all you guys. So thank you for being part of our family. And that's how we look at it, right? Like, that's one cool thing too, is like, if you come into the Man Up to Cancer group and you post something like, hey, I'm struggling, like I need a hand, you're gonna get tons of support. If you need a phone call, pretty much any time of day, because we have people in different time zones, people post all the time like, hey, I am down, who can talk? And no one goes unanswered, which is something that is really, really cool.
That's amazing. So now, just to transition to kind of the podcast shared decision making, I'd love to get your thoughts, and anyone can chime in. But as Trevor said, and I've fallen into your category, Trevor, where I cannot multitask with questions coming in. But I'm sure we'll go through the list at some point and kind of get to people. But you know, I'd love to know, you know, from your perspective. Again, a lot of this podcast was really about how to, you know, make your goals and values known so that the decisions that you're making about your health reflect those, in addition to kind of the clinical standard of care. So I'm curious, you know, if there have been different points in your experience where you've felt more comfortable kind of, you know, making sure that all of your goals were met. If you went through a period of like, just tell me what to do, I just want to, you know, get better. Like, what was your kind of trajectory in terms of that participation in your healthcare decisions?
I think my participation, I mean, first off, I'm a researcher journalist by background. So like, I had an unhealthy relationship with Googling information and like reading scientific studies and like everything. Like, I was reading everything for a period of time, to the point where it was just, you know, I was reading stuff and I didn't know too much about the scientific literature. I could read enough as a layperson, but sometimes I was just scaring myself. So I think it was good. Like, I tried to empower myself from day one. But then something happened that really kicked that into high gear. Me and my team thought that I was stage 3 initially. They didn't see anything distant on my initial CT scan. But then in like 3 months after I had surgery, so I had colon surgery, then I did chemo, and like 3 months later, we did a repeat scan, and it did show like there was a small lesion on my liver, and they could look back into the prior scan and see that it was there, but they didn't seem concerned about it. So I had two teams, one at an NCI center, like major center, and one at my local center, look at this spot on my liver, and both of them said they did not think it was cancer. One of them said it's hemangioma, and one of them said it was a cyst. Like, they thought it was benign.
Right.
Well, I wasn't comfortable with that. Like, it's just like, in what context? Like, I just felt like it was cancer. Sure enough, 3 months later, it had doubled in size.
Wow.
My tumor marker was going up. And then they were like, well, we were wrong. You know, this definitely is metastatic, you know, disease. And then that's really when my stage 4 journey kind of started. But my point is, I really discovered through that process about asking the questions, and also the patient intuition. Like, you know your body, you have intuition. It's okay to ask the questions. You need to ask the questions. And I think that process really turned me into starting to be much more of an empowered patient. Like, okay, even the big hospitals can get things wrong. So I want second opinions, third opinions. Like, I want as many eyes as possible on my disease. I had reservations at first around getting those opinions. Like, how am I going to do this? Is insurance going to pay for it? Will they even see me? How do I get in? And even like, you know, well, doesn't my, you know, a lot of guys think their local oncologist knows everything there is to know about, you know, your cancer, and this is not a knock on my local oncologist is fantastic, but he's the first one to say, like, I'm not a GI specialist. So it's good to have him and a GI specialist involved. And also, just, you know, it's my life. Like, no one's going to care about my life as much as me. So I really just went all in on learning as much as I could about my disease, asking questions, seeing multiple teams. Like, I wasn't afraid at all to just go to anyone and say, I'm a stage 4 cancer patient.
Yeah.
My daughters are 12 and 10 years old. I need, like, can you please see me, review my case, review my, we'll do scans, whatever.
Right.
Because I want to live.
Yeah. Totally.
And so this is, I'm sorry for my long answers, but like, I'm
No.
clearly passionate about these things.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think this is super helpful because I think, again, people go through different kind of trajectories in terms of how they think about things. And clearly your background in research, led you to Dr. Google. And we always call it like the Dr. Google rabbit hole, where
Oh,
you're in one place and all of a sudden you're in a really dark hole and it's like, oh my gosh. But I think, I will have to say, like, for me, I was definitely more in the emotional, like, oh my gosh, I have cancer. Like, tell me, get it out. Tell me what to do. And it took me a while, I think, to get to the point where I was seeking more information and really kind of, I felt kind of guilty for asking for second opinions, even because I
think that's common.
The power dynamic was such that that's kind of was my default reaction. So I'm curious, if someone newly diagnosed comes to you, what are kind of the first pieces of advice you tend to give them?
And the first piece of advice, and probably the one I'll focus on here, is the value of peer-to-peer information and support.
Yeah.
Because even doctors at top cancer centers can get in their silos, and like the pace of information, the pace of scientific discovery, the pace of surgical advances is going so fast that no one doctor and no one center can be on top of all things at all times.
Right.
So the best way that I've learned about what's happening like in the field is through other patients who are going through it, other empowered patients who have walked this road ahead of me, patients who are scientists. So I'm going to give a huge shout out when it comes to colorectal cancer to Colon Town. They have folks with science backgrounds, then they have actual doctors and scientists who are, it's really their jobs to like distill the latest information, provide it in a way that patients can understand. So you can, and also our practitioners have so little time, you meet with them for maybe 15 minutes, a half an hour. Like, you're not going to be able to go over everything that's happening. Like, let's say you're being treated like I am at Mass General. First of all, you're not going to go over everything they have to offer there, let alone at MD Anderson or Hutch or, Moffitt, right? So, but you can go on Colon Town and other groups, and you can connect with people who are being treated everywhere, and they can talk about, this is what's happening here.
Yeah.
These are the trials that are going on. These are the options that's going on. There's even a spreadsheet. There's the Alana project with Colon Town, which is real-time information from people who are on clinical trials. So rather than waiting 3 to 5 years for reports to come out on clinical trials, you can see how patients are doing on these drugs in real time.
Right.
So I'm very passionate about the patient-to-patient movement.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very passionate that gone are the days where, in my mind, patients are just supposed to walk into an office and be told what to do, and this is it.
Right.
And it's one doctor. Like,
right.
You can learn so much through Colon Town and these other groups for CRC. And then for other disease types, there's other groups out there doing that. But for me, my go-to has been Colon Town. So my first advice is join a group like Colon Town, where you can get the latest information on what's happening with your specific disease. And it's very tailored. You can really tailor your experience there. And then the second thing is, do not be, get over those hurdles around second opinions immediately.
Yeah.
If you need to get a second opinion on your case, I believe at the beginning and at multiple points throughout. If a doctor is offended or gives you backlash for asking for a second opinion, that's a red flag. Like, you need to fire that doctor. Because any doctor worth his or her salt is going to tell you, absolutely, the more eyes the better, let's see what we can do. And then, my local doctor is fantastic. He talks with my doctors at Mass General, and they talk about my case. And if there's confusion, they come to, they figure it out. So number one, the patient to patient movement, engage in that. And number two, get those second opinions, and don't be afraid to bring questions to your practitioner, to your team.
Yeah.
And, the big ones, I mean, you can't spend 3 hours with these people. They have hundreds of cases, but, you deserve to have your important questions answered.
Totally. Do you like in the beginning, did you bring a list of questions, or how do you think about that? Because we clearly, one of the things we do is we have these planners where you can, take questions during appointments, but also come up with a list of questions beforehand. And I'm just curious, like, how do you, I always thought of my appointments as kind of this like strategic thing where I'm like, okay, I'm going to come in with an agenda and questions. This was, of course, after my initial fearful period where I was just sitting there like a deer in headlights. But once I kind of engaged, so I would actually kind of prepare for those appointments because I knew I would forget too. And so, how do you think about it when you go in? Do you
Well,
come in with that?
it's a great question. Yes. And this is another piece of advice for the newly diagnosed is bring a friend with you.
Yeah.
Bring someone who has some type of science literacy, or some literacy around these issues, so that they can take notes, they can help you with your questions. Because one of the things, especially early on, is like white coat syndrome, the shock factor. Like, sometimes I've gone into a meeting and like even asked questions and come out of it, and 2 days later I'm like, I have no idea what we talked about, because the stress level can really be high. So bring someone with you to help you with that, and absolutely print out your question. Like, bring that list of questions, and if you don't know what to ask, lean on those other patients. Like, go into those patient communities, say, hey, here's my basic situation. I'm going to have a meeting with my radiologist or my oncologist or whoever. What should I be asking them?
Totally.
And some of these groups have, even files where they just send it to you, like, here's a list.
Yeah, totally. No, that's so true. And I think, again, the thing I hear most from patients is you don't know what you don't know, right? So you're dropped into cancer land and this is a new language, it's a new emotional state you're in. Like, you have no idea where to start. And so I love the advice of find your people, find the people that have gone through it to help guide you, and then come in, prepared and ready to, advocate for yourself, even just by asking questions and, not necessarily.
Like, it took me 6 years to get to this place where I'm, educated as I am. Like, I wasn't like this in my first couple of years. Like, it took a long time to get and I have a lot of advantages, right? Like, I have communications background. I am, I've done some reporting on health. Like, I also have had the time to make this, keeping myself alive basically became my job for a while. Like, my spouse, my wife, Sarah, has been supporting us mostly and having the insurance and everything else. And like, a lot of people, it's so overwhelming, and the burden really is on the patients, fairly or not, to be that squeaky wheel, like Jason Reese just said in the chat. Hey, Jason.
Yes. I like Jason's comment. The doctors are also in that position in many cases. They don't know what they don't know. And so you hope you find someone who, like your doctor, Trevor, is willing to ask and allude to, like, hey, I don't know everything about this, particularly if you're, with a local oncologist who doesn't see a lot of, those very specialized cases. So great call out, Jason. That's we're all kind of in that world, which is a little terrifying when you think about it, because I think for some of us, that emotional kind of orientation is having someone to lean on, whether that's your doctor or a fellow patient, to kind of help you, because again, it's so overwhelming.
Yeah, it is. And in my perfect world, like, if I could create the world for patients, I would have every patient would get a neutral navigator. So an expert navigator who understands insurance, who understands, your cancer, who understand, so that it takes a little bit off of the patient, because you're going through cancer while you have to learn all this stuff, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So like, that navigator and they wouldn't be tied to any institution, like, right? They would be independent.
Right.
So they would be working for you, right? For you, not for the hospital.
Right.
And they could help you get through all these questions and make these, keep you on track.
Right.
It's like your little guardian angel on your shoulder. And maybe we're headed that way. There's a lot of talk lately around funding for navigators.
Yes.
providing support for patients in that way. Maybe AI will help us with that. But right now, or in the 6 years that I've gone through it, most of the people that I've connected, and I've connected with thousands of cancer patients, most have done this themselves.
Yeah, right.
And
Absolutely.
that's a really tall task, especially for people who are sick. And most of them, like a lot of them, still working at the same time, and everything else, like raising kids, like it's the demands that society puts on us as patients to get our best outcomes is really tough. And I'm not sitting here whining, like I'm not a victim with that. Like we all need to do what we need to do. The system is what it is, what it is.
I know. I mean, what you point out is really interesting too, because you have kind of this patient persona where if you're feeling crappy, like it is not a fun time, then you have your kind of quality of life, normal day-to-day stuff, family, work, all of that stuff. And then I think what I love that you guys address in Man Up to Cancer is then society's expectations on you. So, you know, as men, you're expected to act one way during this whole process. And so to be able to mesh all three of those things is impossible. I mean, it really, to your point, it is, you know, it is not realistic to expect to try to do that and then maintain any sense of sanity in any of it, because it's impossible.
I mean, it is. And again, I've had all the advantages, and I'm super lucky. I'm also really lucky with biology. Like because of my Lynch syndrome, I responded really well to immunotherapy. I'm not cured. I'm still considered terminal, but I'm managing it as a chronic illness after 6 years. And just, you know, thinking of all those people, all these close friends that I've had with CRC who haven't had that opportunity, who have died within a couple of years. And, you know, I want to get into, well, first of all, let me say about the podcast. The Patient from Hell podcast is awesome. So Samira Daswani is a great host. She is the patient from hell in a great way. So check that out. The episode that we listened to for today's club really did focus on screening options. And it talked a lot about screening options and how you know, patients should think about screening options, especially for older people. So like after 75, when, like, let's say colonoscopy starts to be more of a risk, then there's thoughts on, well, do we replace with a stool test? Do we replace with some other screening modality? So it was really interesting to hear about that demographic, because I was diagnosed at 41, and because, you know, our group tends to, you know, be a little bit younger. So like we have men in our group, and first of all, it's pan cancer. So of the members, it's all across all tumors. We do have probably more than 1,000 guys impacted by colorectal cancer, though. So I'm aware of that. So I'm more, my attention when it comes to CRC has really been focusing on the younger, young onset, the rise in young onset colorectal cancer, and what we can do about it. So like the under 45 crowd. And I want to throw out a couple statistics, then I hope we can get into screening. But just so everyone knows, 150,000 diagnoses. So more than 150,000 people this year will be diagnosed with colorectal cancer. Probably still around like 52, 53% men, I believe, maybe a little more. But it is, you know, it's an equal opportunity disease. Women are getting it in up to almost 50%. More than 50,000 deaths will occur this year from colorectal cancer. And the number of younger adults, so people in their 20s, 30s, 40s, being diagnosed with CRC has increased dramatically in the last couple decades. And this is finally getting some attention because ACS came out just in the past month saying that colorectal cancer is now the leading cause of death for men under 50, leading cause of cancer death. And it's the second leading cause of cancer death for women under 50. So if people aren't paying attention to colorectal cancer and their bodies and screening, it's time to pay attention. And there's a lot going on with screening. There's a lot of controversy around screening, especially what to do for younger people, because of this young onset increase, the recommended screening age. So get a colonoscopy, right? It's starting now at age 45 for average risk people.
Right.
But what do we do for those younger people as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a tricky scenario. And I think this is when, there's clearly clinical guidance, but when you're an outlier, which, we all are, in terms of being either young or, dealing with this when we're older, like, what do you do then? They always say in medicine, you look for the horse, but when you're a zebra to begin with, it's hard, not to go in that direction in kind of all realms. And so, how did you, Trevor, find your cancer? What was your discovery period for that?
Yeah. So, when I was 40, so into that year before I was diagnosed, I just started getting tired, like really fatigue was my central and pretty much only symptom. And I'll tell you why. I just, I'm a really physical guy. I'm a big guy. I like to work out. I like to, we heat with wood up here in Maine. I like to split wood and everything else. And that winter, I just noticed my abilities just getting, oh, I got to plug in my phone somewhere. That winter, I just realized that my capacity for, doing any kind of labor was going down and down. So a lot of fatigue. I'm going to plug in. Hold on.
No worries.
But I just thought, like, hey, I'm 41 years old. I've got a busy job. I have young kids. I thought it was mental health, and so I put it off for a long, long time. Finally, it got so my resting heart rate was just like up to like way higher than it usually is. And I went in and finally saw my primary care doctor. And this is really important. And the podcast episode touched on this, like, have a relationship with a primary care physician.
Yeah.
If you're over 40, do an annual physical, do annual blood work. Just having that relationship can flag a lot of these problems.
Right.
I hadn't gone to the doctor in several years, and I wasn't seeing my PCP, and my blood work showed that I was anemic. So I had no iron, basically no iron in my blood. Like, I didn't need the transfusion, but I was close.
Yeah.
And that put me on the fast track to a colonoscopy, because usually you're bleeding in your GI tract if you have anemia and you don't have any other bleeding.
Right.
And that's when we found basically a 4-inch tumor in my ascending colon. And if you have a tumor on the right side, so the colon kind of goes up your right side of your stomach, or right side of your abdomen, over the center of your abdomen, and down on the left side. If you have tumors that start on the right side, like I did, sometimes fatigue and anemia are the only presentation.
Wow.
Other times, especially if you have a left-sided tumor, you can have blood. Obviously, anyone should be looking for blood in their stool. If you have blood in the toilet that's persistent, you need to talk to your doctor.
Right.
So in my case, it was just the fatigue, and then I was diagnosed at colonoscopy. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that's amazing. So just briefly, I know we're kind of running to the end of our time. Should we take a quick look at any of the questions that have come through from anyone watching to see if we can hit? I saw so many chime-ins. I saw a striped unicorn comment, and I can't remember who said
That's
it.
John Moore. Yeah.
It's like, yep, amen, my friend.
Yeah, I will scroll through those, but give me 2 minutes to talk about screening.
Yeah, absolutely.
So my recommendation is this. If you've reached the age of 45 and you don't have any family history of colitis or colorectal cancer, then please do a colonoscopy. And if you're under 45 and you have these symptoms, so unusual, persistent, unexplained fatigue, unusual, persistent abdominal pain over a period of time, any blood in your stool. If you have any of that at any age, talk to your primary care doctor about getting screened. And the reason colonoscopy is still the gold standard at 45 is because it detects precancerous polyps and removes them. So my wife just went in 2 weeks ago. She is 46, and she had her colonoscopy. There was a 5 millimeter rectal polyp that was removed, precancerous. no problems, come back in 5 years.
Yep.
If she had waited, or if she had not gotten that colonoscopy,
Right.
there's a chance that that polyp would have developed into a cancer.
Right.
And I'm really excited about the blood-based testing and the stool-based testing. So Cologuard is making advances all the time to be better at picking up cancer. It's really good already at detecting cancer. It's not so good at detecting large polyps or precancerous polyps. Same thing, Guardant Health is working on blood-based testing that is extremely sensitive now for cancer, but not the blood-based and the stool-based testing are not as good at picking up their sensitivity, or whatever word they use for picking up polyps, is pretty low still. I'm hopeful that those rates go way up. So like maybe several years from now, you can just have a blood test, or a stool test that will just give you, like, you know, way more information about polyps. But for now, I really encourage people to get that colonoscopy test. There is a place for the stool test. There is a place for the blood test, especially for people who maybe they sign up for a colonoscopy, but they just won't do it or don't get it done, right? The best screening test is the one that gets done.
Absolutely.
So those are really the options that are out there right now. Colonoscopy is not a big deal. It's 1 day of sucky prep. I'm telling you, all the surgeries and chemo and everything else, and the emotional stuff that I've gone through, it can't even compare that to a couple days of inconvenience and discomfort. It's not bad.
Yes.
Look at all the celebrities. Look at Ryan Reynolds and Deion Sanders and all these people out there. If they can do it, you can do it.
And just, you know, here in our circle of trust, I am getting a colonoscopy on Valentine's Day. So really you can celebrate any holiday with a colonoscopy as well.
Yeah, and so Ryan Culbertson here raises a great point. So sometimes the PCP just ignore your symptoms like mine did. I had to find another doctor. Like, you hear this all the time. Even my relatives, direct relatives, who say my cousin has colon cancer, like even if they're 45, sometimes like this sucks again that you have to be that squeaky wheel, but you have to be that squeaky wheel. You have to say no, like the young onset colorectal cancer is on the rise and I need to have this screening done.
You got to become the patient from hell. That's kind of the message of, you know, this podcast is really you have to advocate for yourself.
You have to be the patient from hell, because with the survival rates so low for stage 4, and with the treatments really not progressing the way we need them to, the better way to get at this is to screen and stop it before it happens, right? So what do we do for the younger people? Well, this is so if you have a family history, especially early onset, you need to talk to us. Go to a GI center, right? Like, go to a major hospital, tell them your story, ask them what's appropriate. Like, hey, I'm 25, but should I be doing colonoscopy? Should I be doing a stool test? Should I be doing a blood test? It's never too early to ask these questions and to talk about screening. And if you have symptoms that I just talked about at any age, you can have colon cancer. We've had teenagers that we know of with colon cancer. We have plenty of guys in our group in their 20s and 30s, otherwise healthy guys who have this. So if you're symptomatic, don't wait. Go talk to your doctor. And also, if you have that family history, get it done. And hopefully in the future, we will have better screening for that younger group, right? Because we know colonoscopy is a tough sell for, you know, especially for people in their 20s and 30s. But thank you for giving me the time I know we're pushing time, but like, it's just really critical that we talk about screening. We talk about people getting at this beforehand, because once you get into my boat, it's just a survival game. Like I've been fighting for my life. I'm tired, right? It's 6 years of doing this, and I will do this as long as I possibly can. But it's changed everything about my life. So please, and if you can get it stage 1, stage 2, even stage 3, your odds of getting cured are so high, from like 70 to 100%, depending on what stage you are, basically. So thank you, Molly.
Oh my gosh, thank you, Trevor, so much. And I think, you know, again, I'm sure I speak for many people watching, where we're so grateful for you for taking your crappy situation and channeling it in a way to help others. I think, unintended. Thank you for catching that. I knew you would. But literally, again, it's very easy to, kind of curl up and want to, be by ourselves during this. But for you to open up and to actually share your experience with others helps so many people. And it's a hard thing to do. And so thank you so much for the work that you do. And I love that I got to infiltrate into your organization today to talk about this. I encourage everyone to catch the podcast. And again, thank you so much for being a part of this, Trevor.
Oh, no, thank you so much. It's so important within our community and outside of it. So I'll figure out a way to share that. I do know how to get this video as an MP4, so
Perfect.
I'm going to share it in the Howling Place group. And I'll also share it in some of our public places, like on our website. Yep. So while I look through questions, I would love it. Do you want to talk to folks a little bit more about Manta Cares or the podcast? Like whatever you want to do, go for it. Yeah. I'll scroll through here.
No, I mean, again, we've kind of gone through the patient from hell. Again, is we typically post about 3 episodes every month, so it's almost weekly, not quite. And really, it's a wide variety of topics. We, as we talked about today, there's some clinical stuff, there's a lot of patient stories, there's a lot of nonprofits doing really great work that we try to feature. Really, we're trying to amplify, all elements of kind of the cancer experience so that people like us have better access to all the things available in terms of resources and education. And Manta Cares is kind of our larger organization that puts out the podcast. And really, it started from Samira, who's the host of the podcast, her personal experience with breast cancer. And it's really kind of grown into this global movement of, creating tools and resources that hopefully help make the cancer experience just a little bit easier or suck a little bit less, depending on, how you think about it. And really, again, I think the silver lining of the cancer experience for us has been meeting people like you, meeting Man Up to Cancer, meeting the people that are, again, channeling that personal experience to really help other patients. I think it's, when you go through it, I think, we would never wish it upon anyone else. And so, but to be able to use that to actually innovate and create change is incredibly powerful. So again, I'm so grateful for everyone who listened today and check out the podcast.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
We love our partnership with Man Up to Cancer. And again, we're always looking for fun ways to collaborate. So, Trevor, you basically can't be rid of me now is what I'm saying.
Yeah, same. Likewise. I mean, yeah, this has been great. I haven't done too many of these, like, especially in the public, like on my public page. Yeah. So I can definitely see doing this again for another podcast.
Yeah, I would love that. I would love that.
Scott
Yeah,
Young says a colonoscopy is better than cancer.
Amen.
Thank you, Scott. Absolutely. Yes. If anyone listening, we still got about 30 people on here. If anyone has any questions in the last couple minutes before we wrap up, feel free to put them in the chat. I went through and there was tons of great comments. I didn't see any other questions on there right now, but just tons of great comments, like echoing what we're talking about. Especially a lot of comments around that whole making sure you get that second opinion. I have a personal story on that. Like, one of the people who was early into Man Up to Cancer said, like, I don't need a second opinion. Like, my local doctor, I've trusted him for 30 years. He knows exactly what he's talking about. Come to find out, that local doctor wasn't even an oncologist. Like, he was like I think he was like a foot doctor, but he was like convincing his friend that like he knew all the answers about cancer. And like, but this like actually happens where guys will just defer to their local person even if they don't have expertise. And it's like, I think we're talking about giving yourself the best chance to have the best outcome.
Yeah.
Exactly. And part of that is just making sure that you're being seen by, like, it never hurts to have multiple sets of eyes on your scans, on your reports, talking to you. Exactly. So I know we've gone over that a bunch, but.
Yes, but I love that's, I mean, again, I don't know if this is possible, but I would love to see even just the list of comments. I think that's really helpful to get the,
I think I can do that.
Yeah, that would be great because again, and we'll share. I know you mentioned sharing it out on your various Facebook groups, and if we can figure out how to, if you can figure out how to share it with me, we'll put it on we'll actually put it on the episode page for this podcast on the Manta Cares website
Yep.
because I think again, really the power of the podcast club is actually hearing people that are impacted, and how they feel about this, what their reactions to some of these ideas are, and what their personal experiences have been. So,
100%.
yeah.
And
So
we do have a question.
yes.
Ryan Culbertson says, how does one go about getting a second opinion? It's a great question. How do you know where to go? How much does a second opinion typically cost? So the best thing to do is in terms of how to know where to go, that's that patient to patient thing. So find a group from your cancer. If you have colorectal cancer, just go into Colon Town and say, I'm in X. Give me recommendations on what centers to go to, what doctors to see. And then in terms of how to get it, you just call them up. Like these centers have insurance specialists. So basically, like, let's say I want to go to Mass General. I will literally call them and say, I'm a new patient. I have this diagnosis. I'm looking for a second opinion. And they will, like, they have intake people on their general lines that will help get you those answers. And how much does it cost? It all depends on insurance and whether you can. So oftentimes it costs nothing, or just like a copay, depending on your situation. But like when I went to Mass General, my insurance only covers Maine. It only covers coverage in Maine. But I had my primary care physician and my local oncologist just write a simple letter saying, yes, this level of care is not available in Maine. And so then my insurance company said, well, this care is not available in Maine, so yes, you can go to Mass General to get this opinion. But all insurances are different, but usually the center you will call is used to working with all the insurances. So they will tell you, they'll say, and you can even tell them, make sure they do this anyways, but make sure they contact your insurance company, and then either your insurance company or the center should let you know, what this is going to cost you. And you can just ask that question directly. But oftentimes it's very low cost. People think sometimes it's going to cost a fortune to do it. If you're the squeaky enough wheel and you're trying to prevent your insurance company from spending money on you, right? So like you're actually trying to help the situation. So oftentimes consults, can be done pretty easily.
Yeah, that's great. We could have a whole nother show on insurance too, because that's a whole nother ball of wax when you're
Oh my gosh. And I can't, and that's a world, fortunately, like I have great insurance. I've been very, very lucky with that. I haven't had to I haven't had to go bankrupt or, yes, it's been expensive, but it's been manageable. But for people who are already starting out, struggling financially, like we know financial toxicity is a huge, huge problem in the community. So I definitely cannot talk intelligently about insurance, but I can talk intelligently about the impact that these costs have on the folks in our community. Let me just scroll down to, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say one of our partners is Triage Cancer, who does a lot of work with cancer patients on navigating, workplace issues, or it's basically volunteer lawyers who can actually help you navigate a lot of that stuff. So that's another resource for anyone listening. Triagecancer.org. They're wonderful.
Awesome. And I'm just looking through these last comments. So we're a little over. We're going to get off here in a second, but
we could talk all day, Trevor. I mean, truly, I feel like
I know.
we literally just scratched the surface.
Though, like John Brent says that Bing Search or Microsoft Copilot are pretty good tools to research and give you a bulleted list of specialists in your area. Jason Randall with Colon Town says, feel free to reach out to him. He can point you guys in the direction of some resources for CRC and second opinions. And also Colon Town has a second opinion fund that sometimes people can actually get some funds through Colon Town to pay for those costs of a second opinion. So thank you for, and Ryan V says, if you have insurance, make sure make sure and find out your list of benefits. My wife's insurance covered me getting a second opinion from Mayo Clinic. How awesome is that? Thanks, guys, for chiming in. And Annie Dolores, you're always a champion here. She says there's a few remote second opinions. She also asked me about my book, which I will plug here at the end. Yes, you can still get my book, A Man's Guide to Living with Cancer, on Amazon. It does go over a lot of this stuff, about, especially the chapter about being that empowered patient, and making sure that, again, it shouldn't have to fall to patients to move the levers oftentimes, but when you know the simple things to do, it can definitely be helpful. Annie is one of those science-minded people in Colontown and other resources, and she is just one of these people that helps so many of us navigate the complex science literature and research and everything that's out there. We need people like that who can digest these things at ASCO and everywhere else, and give them to the membership in ways we can understand.
Yes, they're like translators. I mean, it truly is like translating a different language in many cases. So that's so wonderful.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think we're good for today.
This was amazing.
Share this far and wide, but I just want to thank you so much.
Oh, Trevor, likewise. Thank you so much for being a part of this. Thank you for your community, for showing up, and we look forward to sharing the video, and we'll link to your book as well. And we are so glad to partner with Man Up to Cancer. So glad our paths have crossed.
Thank you, Molly. Talk soon.
Take care, Trevor.
Bye-bye. Thanks everyone for being here. Bye-bye.
This podcast, show notes, and newsletter is for general informational purposes only and does not constitute the practice of medicine, nursing, or other professional healthcare services, including the giving of medical advice, and no doctor-patient relationship is formed. The use of information on this podcast or any materials linked from this blog is at the user's own risk. The content here is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Users should not disregard or delay in obtaining medical advice for any medical condition they may have and should seek the assistance of their healthcare professionals for any such conditions.